joining us for this evening's Surrey Police Live, where we're talking about recruitment. My name's Lucy Parsons. I am the inclusion lead for the force. We've got a super lineup for you this evening. We've got two panels that will be joining us, who are going to answer your questions about our recruitment processes, what pre-application help we can offer you all, and what it's really like to be a police officer. First, I'll be speaking to Eleanor. She's from our recruitment team, and then we'll hear from Ria, who is in our positive action team, and then finally from PC Khan about his experiences of the support that we offer at the pre-application stage. Later, in the second half, we will have our Chief Constable, Gavin Stevens, and he will be here with PC Johnson, who you might have seen on our social media this week, talking about his experiences of becoming a police officer as well. If you have any questions throughout the evening, do pop them in the chat box at the bottom and we'll try and answer as many of them as we go along, but equally we'll also mop up all the questions at the end and do an FAQ section tomorrow. But first, let's watch this short video about the 2 routes into policing which you can take. We're accepting applications for both routes, which close on the 8th of August. Eleanor, can you introduce yourself, please, and talk a little bit more about the 2 routes into Surrey Police that we've just seen on the video, and then what candidates can expect from our recruitment process?
Hey, so hi, I'm Eleanor and I work on the recruitment and attraction team, so that's getting candidates in, getting them through the process, and hopefully getting them well on their way to becoming police officers with us. So, as we've seen from the VT, we've got 2 different entry routes. So we've got the Police Constable Degree Apprenticeship, known as the PCDA, and the Degree Holder Entry Programme, known as the DHEP. So essentially the main difference between the 2 is whether you do or you don't already hold a degree. So if you do already hold a degree in any subject, then you go on to the Degree Holder Entry Programme, and that's a 2-year course that teaches you everything you need to know to become a police officer. So there is some academic study and some on-the-job learning. The Police Constable Degree Apprenticeship, so the PCDA, is very similar. It's just designed for those who don't have a degree already, essentially, and that is a 3-year course. And at the end of that course you get a degree in professional policing practice. For the Degree Holder Entry Programme you get a graduate diploma in professional policing practice. So both of them you get a qualification at the end of it.
Understood. And what's the upper age limit that you talk about in your recruitment processes?
Okay, so I'll go through the recruitment processes, but essentially the minimum age to apply is 17 for a police officer role, and the upper age limit is 56. The reason there is an upper age limit is that just allows candidates to get through the recruitment process and start by the time they're 57, meaning they can complete their 3 years training prior to police retirement age of 60.
Understood.
So, would you like me to go through the recruitment
Yeah,
process?
let's talk through the process.
Okay, so the first thing, obviously applications are open at the moment, so if you're thinking of applying, this is the process that you'll be going through. So, first thing you do is apply online, so the Surrey Police careers site, submit an application on there, and that'll be checked against our eligibility criteria, and you need to upload qualifications with that as well, so that's either a certificate, transcript if you went to university, and those will be checked by our recruitment team. The next stage is the Behavioural Styles Questionnaire, and that's an online questionnaire which tests your sort of behavioural traits in a working environment. So it's all done online. The biggest advice of that is just answer it truthfully. It's a true reflection of yourself, and people always overthink it, and you don't need to. It's just be you. Just think of your working behaviours If you haven't got previous work experience, then think of maybe your behaviours in sort of a college or a school environment, or even sort of volunteering, part-time job, just your work behaviours. Following that stage, you then go through to the National Assessment Centre, which is done for every police officer in the country. Every force will go through the National Assessment Centre, and that consists of 3 stages. So, well, actually, no, it consists of 2 stages, well, technically 3 stages. So the first stage is a competency-based interview. That's a little bit odd. You'll essentially record yourself answering a question based on the competencies and values framework. You'll record yourself, and then that will be sent away to be assessed.
Right.
The next stage technically has 2 parts to it. So part A is a written exercise. So you'll be given a scenario, and it'll be a case of writing a response. That could be to a member of the public, it could be to a senior officer, it could be to a colleague. It's just a written exercise. Essentially test your ability to put sort of words down, sort of, I would say on paper, but it's not on paper, or on a screen, on a computer or a laptop, tablet, anything like that. And the second part of that stage is a briefing exercise, which is sort of very similar to the interview. Again, you'll film yourself giving a briefing, and that could be something like about a local issue, it could be something that's gone on, a crime that's occurred, and that just shows how you sort of relay information back and how you would brief your team, how you brief your colleagues. And sort of best advice for that is keep an eye on the competencies and values framework. That's really key throughout it, and you'll see that sort of throughout the recruitment process.
Okay. Let's go to some questions now, if that's okay. So we've got Jade on Facebook. Good evening. And she says, it's such a shame that they have made it GCSE based, and so many people now can't apply because of their exam results 20 years ago, and this affects it. What would we say to Jade?
So it depends what Jade's referring to, whether the exam results, either she doesn't have the certificates, in which case you just need to request them from the school's college or exam board. If she hasn't got the required results, so that's a grade A starter C at GCSE in English and Maths, that might be a case of looking to do a course. So for example, looking at a functional skills level 2 course or a GCSE course and getting those results. As obviously you will need that to apply. Obviously the course is partly academic, so that those sort of base levels of English and Maths is really important, so that we're not putting you at a disadvantage to then go on and complete the course.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got another question here. Can I apply without a driving licence? And this person's also got motoring offences.
So I'll answer that sort of in 2 parts. So yes, you can apply without a driving licence. You just need that by the time that you start with us. If you've got motoring offences, the key thing there is you can't have we can't have 6 points or more.
Right.
So if you've got no points or 3 points or anything under 6, that's fine. As soon as you hit 6 points, unfortunately, that means you'd need to wait until those points drop off your licence.
Okay. So what happens after the assessment centre? We were talking about you had the 2 phases, or 2 stages, sorry. So you go onto the website to do your application, then you go through to the assessment centre. What happens then?
So after that stage, you'll have sort of a final interview with representatives from Surrey Police. So at the moment, that is being done virtually. It might move to face-to-face in the future. It all depends on what we know and love as COVID, and we're continually reviewing that. But you'll meet sort of a couple of officers, will interview you, and again, that's based on the competencies and values framework.
Okay.
If you're successful at that, there is a few pre-employment checks, but at that point, as long as you meet the pre-employment, so you're vetting medical criteria, DNA and fingerprints, then you'll be offered an intake on one of the courses.
Okay. Another question. I'm not a British citizen. Can I still apply?
So candidates can apply if they're not British citizen. So a couple of options for this. If you're part of the European Economic Area, then you may apply. If you're not, then you need indefinite leave to remain in the UK.
Right.
Another thing I should add onto there as well is you must have lived in the UK for at least 3 years prior to applying. So been a UK resident for that time.
Understood, thank you. And earlier you were talking about the vetting process. Could you give us a little bit more insight into what that looks like for individuals applying?
Yeah, so the vetting process is something that, again, people get a little bit worried about, but it's nothing, it just checks sort of your suitability to be an officer in the sense that you're not a risk to the force. So that'll check you and your family's criminal history, it'll check sort of financial records and just make sure you're not in any major debt. It will check your, and again, any criminal associates. And our sort of biggest advice with that is if there is something, just declare it.
Declare it from the outset.
Declare it from the outset, because 9 times out of 10, I mean, most people have a past, people know someone that might have been arrested, or they might have a family member who's been arrested. It's quite often not an automatic no, it just needs to be declared and the vetting team can look into it and make that decision.
Understood, thank you. We've got a question that's come through from YouTube now. So, hi Matt, good evening. I'm planning to work in Spain from January through to March, but have applied for the PCDA now. Is it true that you will only need to be in England for the assessment centre?
So, yeah, essentially, so the BSQ, the Behavioural Styles Questionnaire, can be completed anywhere. The interview, it depends if it's face-to-face or virtual.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's hard to say at the moment, talking that far down the line, what it will be. If it's virtual, that can be done anywhere. I think last year I interviewed someone who was actually out in Australia, so they'd got up in the middle of the night to do it. But obviously if it's face-to-face, you need to come in, and importantly for that, if you're successful, you need to check documents, and that has to be done face-to-face. Normally that's done at interview stage.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that one, Matt. We've got another one from YouTube now from Jacob. If I were to do the PCDA route afterwards, if I wanted to become, hold on, what's this one say? If I were to do the PCDA route afterwards, if I wanted to, would I be able to become a detective?
Yeah, of course. With any of the routes, we always want people to sort of develop themselves, and detective is just one of the routes that people can take after completing their course. By all means, so to become a detective, you then do your National Investigators exam, and then you become a learner detective constable. So that is one route, and it's open to everyone who completes their course. And there's other specialisms that people might look into as well.
Great.
So yeah, of course, detective is definitely a route if people are taking the PCDA.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Right, we're going to move over to Ria now. So Ria is in our Positive Action team, and she's going to talk through the activities which are available to promote equality of opportunity at Surrey Police. So Ria, please could you introduce yourself?
Hi Lucy, so my name is Ria and I'm an inclusion officer here at Surrey Police. So I'm going to talk to you about what positive action is and how it can support future candidates. So positive action refers to activity that promotes equality of opportunity. So here at Surrey Police we realise that society is structured in ways that not everyone in life starts off at the same position. So what our team does is strives to identify what those barriers are that will prevent people coming into our organisation, and what measures we can put in place to really support those people to fulfil them with confidence. So that's our main goal.
Thank you. So, thank you for that. Who can we help at the pre-application stage?
So anyone who has a protected characteristic, we can support. So we offer a great range of support. So we offer group mentoring as well as one-to-one mentoring. And again, this is to fulfil candidates with the confidence that they can do this job. So we appreciate a lot of people have the ability. It's just that confidence to really go there. So what we do is we make sure they know how to really show what their strengths are, how they can show their passion, make sure they're prepared for interviews, questions. We do this all when the application stage opens. We just make sure they're really prepared so they know what they're doing, they're confident at every stage of the process, and that's what we're there for. And on top of that, we also do recruitment open evenings as well. So we work in line with recruitment such as Eleanor over here, and what we do is it's a great opportunity for candidates to come along. They get to ask questions but actually get to talk to a range of people from Surrey Police as well. So they get to hear from whether that be officers or police staff or people in different parts of the organisation, hear what it's like to be here, how our culture is inclusive, what we're doing, what the job role's like. So it gives them a real good insight as to what they'll be expecting.
Amazing. Okay, and earlier when Eleanor was speaking, she was saying that sometimes people can be nervous about the vetting process. I presume that that's part of your positive action work. It's when you're talking through the pre-application, it's to sort of settle people's nerves around what that might be and to just support them in that way. Understood.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So, have we got a information evening about positive action coming up? Did you understand that?
Yes, so on the 31st of August we have an information evening for our contact centre. So we have the contact centre here at Surrey Police, and they're the people who take 999 calls, and it's a really interesting, fast-paced job. So that the recruitment window will be opening for that in autumn. So it's a great opportunity to come along, hear from people from that department, understand what the job role entails, and see if you can see yourself in that role. So yeah, great opportunity.
Brilliant. And how might people go about contacting the Positive Action team?
So if you go to the Surrey Police website and type in Positive Action into the search bar, all our contact details will come up. Feel free to send us an email. We love replying to emails. And we will get back to you as soon as possible.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Right, we're going to move over to some more questions now. Eleanor, lots of these are coming through for you, so we're going to switch around again. So, somebody is asking, can I still apply if I have a criminal record?
Yeah, so that goes back to that vetting question.
Okay.
It depends what the offence was, what the record was, and if any time was served in a prison environment, whether that's adult or juvenile. What you just need to do is declare it on the application form, and it will be reviewed initially by the recruitment team, and then as you go through the process, if you're successful, you just need to declare it on the vetting form.
Always that declare bit.
Yeah, that's the key.
So, with the new entry route, do I need to pay for the degree?
No, you don't, and that is what is so good about it. It's essentially a free degree. Why would you go to university and pay an absolute fortune? No, it's all funded by Surrey Police, and the best thing is you get paid to do it, so you get paid a full salary whilst you're doing both courses, both the degree apprenticeship and the degree holder route.
So there's another question that's come through. I have a medical condition. Is that an issue?
No, that's not an issue. Again, if you're successful at the recruitment process, every officer will have an occupational health form that they do, and that's triaged by the occupational health team. If you've declared a condition, what they might do is follow it up with either a call or an appointment, and what they'll put in place is reasonable adjustments that we as an employer can put in place to support you at work, depending on your condition and the requirements of that.
Hello from YouTube. Hi Recruitment. Do you automatically apply for, let's say, AFO or RPU, or do you apply as a normal officer and then join divisions? Can you explain what AFO and RPU are?
I was going to say, this is testing me now, my acronyms, but AFO is, if I'm right, is an authorised firearms officer. I'm looking at some here, PC card. And RPU is Roads Policing Unit.
That makes sense, yeah.
So you do need to apply for them. So that can be done once you've completed your probation, which is 3 years for PCDA, 2 years for the DHEP. You can apply to any police officer role that comes up, and so many do, more roles than you'd even think of sort of appear on the jobs page. Definitely for AFOs, I'm almost certain for RPU as well, there is a course that teaches you everything that you need to know, and that course will need to be passed to then be qualified, but you can apply for it, and please do.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Right, I'm going to spin round again. PC Khan, hello, nice
Hi.
to see you. Tell us a little bit about you, how you joined the force, all that jazz.
Okay, so I joined Surrey Police in October last year. I'm on one of the detective degree holder entry routes currently. I was supported by the Positive Action team from the minute I submitted my expression of interest online. So the Positive Action team got in touch with me. I had lots of questions, and they told me all about the recruitment process and what to expect. They then made sure that I was fully aware of what tasks I need to complete whilst I was at the assessment centre, and how I could best prepare for all those tasks at the assessment centre to ensure that I performed to the best of my ability and hopefully pass, which I did. Hence why I'm sitting here today. But they were great, and they helped me just mentally prepare and to be fully aware of what was expected of me. So I went into that feeling really confident and that I'd tried my hardest to prepare. So yeah, I got a really good outcome. After I finished my assessment centre and I found out that I passed that, the Positive Action Team continued to support me. So I had a couple of wobblies where I kind of doubted myself as to whether I could do this job, whether I wanted to withdraw my application form, and they were really great in just reassuring me, telling me that I could do it, and showing to me how inclusive Surrey Police is and what skills I could bring coming from a minority ethnic community into Surrey Police. That really changed my opinion, because that made me feel that Surrey Police is a really inclusive organisation to work for. And I kind of felt if the Positive Action Team has supported me so much from before I've even joined, then that support is going to continue throughout my career. So that fundamentally is what made my decision to carry on with the process. I didn't have to complete another assessment and a fitness test. And I also had the opportunity to speak to police officers whilst I was going through the recruitment process. So I got to speak to them to find out about what their role was like, the role that I was applying for. So I really had a good idea of what I was getting myself in for and what I was applying for. So they were fantastic in supporting me and mentoring me through the application process.
Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, so we've got a few more questions that are coming in here. Who should we go to? So, Eleanor, there's one more here about university. Will I be expected to go to university?
No, they come to us. So it's the
Short
easy
and
answer.
sweet.
No, so we partner with a few different universities that are actually based all over the country. But no, they come down to us. So the training is delivered by the universities and by our force teams. It's a bit of a mixture. But no, there's no sort of travelling up north to university or down to the coast, I'm afraid.
Fab. Thank you. Okay, so let's keep your questions coming in. That's our ask this evening. But what we're going to do now is we're going to watch two more videos. One which shows Pleasy O'Flanagan, who's talking to us about how she joined on the PCDA route, and her thoughts on personal safety as a female officer. And also she'll touch on the bleep test fitness, which PC Khan mentioned just a moment ago, which you are required to pass. When we return after those videos, we'll be joined by PC Johnson and also our Chief Constable, Gavin Stevens as well. So see you shortly.
Hi, my name is PC O'Flanagan. I'm based here at Staines in Surrey's Northern Division. I'm part of the PCDA intake and I started in January of 2021. I joined policing originally because I previously used to work as cabin crew, and throughout my entire career I've worked in the travel industry, which didn't have a good time in the COVID-19 pandemic. I wanted to join the police because I really felt that I could make a difference, and with the transferable skills that I've had previously from working in the travel industry and working as cabin crew, I felt that coming into policing I would be able to suit the shift pattern, the lifestyle would suit me, and also bringing across those skills I'd be able to make a difference and help members of the public. If you're thinking of doing the PCDA course, I thoroughly recommend it, but what I would suggest as any hints or tips to anybody new is use the university and their study guides. It's very difficult trying to balance working a full-time job and doing a university degree at the same time, but the university have so many hints and tips as to how you can plan your study days. Whilst you're doing PCDA and you're on the coach unit, you get 2 of your 6 days on as study days. Don't burn the candle at both ends. You really need to prioritise yourself on this course and make sure that you put yourself first. The workload is extremely intense, but as long as you do everything properly and you follow your study plan, then it's really worth it, and I would highly recommend it. So when I first joined, my personal safety was definitely something that I considered and was a major topic in my interview questions. But the safety training that you receive is 2 weeks in your initial training. This is 2 weeks solid of personal safety training and first aid, how to protect yourself and how to protect others. This made me feel 100 times better about my own confidence. I was concerned primarily about my gender and my height and my size, and dealing with certain incidences where it could potentially be violent or there could be harm caused to me or to somebody else. But through the safety training and working with your colleagues, I learned that the strength that I have can really be used as an advantage. And now going to jobs, I'm very aware of my personal safety and how I can protect other people and how to use the equipment that you get given. So the bleep test, I was a little bit dreading the bleep test, if I'm honest, just because it brought back horrible memories of being in the school playground and having to do it with all of your peers. But the bleep test is nowhere near as bad as everyone makes it out to be. There's so much encouragement that you get from the other officers if you're feeling nervous about it at all. Everybody does the bleep test together, so you've always got somebody there that can cheer you on if you're struggling, and there's lots of support in terms of training if you need to do any beforehand. But it's good fun and it's not something that should be feared.
Welcome back. We've got some new speakers with us now. We've got our Chief Constable, Gavin Stevens, and then we've also got PC Johnson here as well. Do remember to post your questions to any of our speakers as we're going through, and we'll answer them as we carry on talking. So, Mr. Stevens,
hi.
Let's talk about why candidates should choose to join Surrey Police.
Well, why not? I came to Surrey in 1996. They've not been able to get rid of me since, so it's just a great place to work. When I moved to Surrey, I'd done a few years policing in Cambridgeshire after university, and I was getting married, so I wanted to move to the southeast, and I made contact with lots of forces, and Surrey was by far the friendliest to me on the phone, and it's for really no other reason than that I ended up here, that I had a friendly response, and I think that's still true in the force today, that we try and be a friendly force. And it's just such a great career. Sometimes I get asked, I mean, Victor and I were just chatting before we came in here about career opportunities, and I sometimes get asked what's been the best bit about policing. It's impossible to say, because there are just so many different things to do that you can develop your interests in all sorts of different directions. So I would say, if you're tempted by policing, just do it. Just come and have a look, because you won't regret it.
You were speaking to me the other week actually about getting the policing bug.
Yes.
And it's made me smile ever since.
Yeah.
Because, talk to us about the bug.
Yeah, if you get bitten by the bug, yeah. So I was definitely, in fact, I can probably name the time that I got bitten by the policing bug. So I'd done my probation with my Chief Constable Lee, and then I was sort of let out on my own and crewed with a guy called Chris, who's still a friend of mine today. And Chris and I ended up on a sort of stop check of a car in Cambridge city centre. And it was a little brown Mini. That date, it shows you how long ago it was. That would be considered a classic now. But on our own initiative, we uncovered a number of criminal offences that were going on. We ended up arresting all of the occupants of the Mini. And it was probably that incident, working with Chris, having a great crewmate who motivated me, and I think I motivated him as well, recognising what you could achieve through teamwork to sort of keep communities safe. That was probably the time that I got bitten by the bug, and I think I knew from that day onwards that this was going to be the career for me. Yeah.
Thank you. Shall we talk about our commitments?
Yeah, sure. So another thing that runs really at the heart of what I believe policing is all about, and I think this comes from my sort of childhood growing up on the North East Coast, is this like real strong sense of community, a sense of public service. So I had the great privilege of being able to grow up somewhere that really was safe and felt safe as well. So that's the sort of headlines of our commitments, that we want a county that not only is safe in a way that you can measure it, low levels of crime and things like that, but actually feels safe to live in. Because if it doesn't feel safe, then why would you want your children to go to school here? Why would you want to set up a business in Surrey? So that feelings of safety is really important. And we then break the commitments down into three things, really. A set of commitments to our communities, which is all about that, keeping crime levels low, looking after the most vulnerable, investigating offences and bringing offenders to justice. But equally, we've got sets of commitments about the future of the force. This is a force with really big ambitions to do good things, whether that's in our use of technology or great places to work. So there's a set of commitments about the future of the force. But importantly, if you're thinking about joining as a recruit, then there's a set of commitments to each other as well. We call them commitments to our people, and that's all about what I've been chatting about: being friendly, being inclusive, being able to come and work here and feel like you can give of your best, you can be yourself, and have great opportunities to learn. And I think from that comes a lot of pride. We do sort of celebrate our achievements really well in policing, I think. Although you might not hear about that in the national media so much, but internally we do a really good job of feeling proud of our work. But of course, in return, we also expect really high standards as well. So if you come into policing, you've got to be somebody that wants to really uphold those high standards and set an example to the rest of our communities.
Thank you very much. Okay, shall we move over to PC Johnson now? So, PC Johnson, please could you introduce yourself and, following on from Gavin, explain how you then chose to join Surrey Police?
Well, I'm PC Johnson. I'm on the DHEP entry, which is the degree holder entry route. I started the same time as PC Khan, who was on the previous panel. And my journey, the reason I chose to join Surrey Police, it's pretty much mirrors what the Chief said. I feel that Surrey have been friendly from the start in comparison to other forces. And from your first email, first application, everyone's been nice to me. And they're just very supportive as well. And then they give you all the tools you need as well, all the support, all the training, which is necessary as well. Don't really know much more.
I saw your video actually on Facebook earlier in the week,
Okay.
and it was about what you liked about being a police officer. And I suppose I think a question that the audience might like to know is that living up to your expectations?
Living up to it more, if I'm honest. Every day I turn up. I think we were speaking about it with my colleague the other day. We both agreed that when we're not at work, we want to be at work, because you get that sense of just making a difference daily, be it if it's a small difference that you make, that just impacts you and you feel like you're actually doing a good job, and it just encourages you to turn up to work and do better as well.
You've been bitten by the bug.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Victor and I were chatting about this actually just before we came in, that I think in policing, never underestimate just what a difference you can make to somebody's life. And sometimes it might not be on that day, but you might say something to them over a cup of tea in their kitchen at a difficult time in their life that might just stick with them and resonate them, and who knows what that leads to, but you definitely can make a difference.
Yeah, and it's that importance of building an inclusive culture as
Yeah.
well, isn't it, for sure. So where are you in your training at the moment?
Okay, so I've just started on MPT, been there for a few months now.
And explain to us what MPT is.
Neighbourhood Policing Team, I believe it stands for. So that's your general response. So when you get a 999 call, be it 101, we're the first line, frontline officers who turn up and deal with the situation. So after leaving DCU, which is a dedicated training unit, you needed to be IPS before you left. I think things changed prior to that. It wasn't like that, but now you need to be IPS. But once you get on MPT, you start working towards your FOC, which I believe is your full operational competency or something. So that's where I'm at the moment, working towards that. But I turn up, do the everyday shifts, and just a general response officer, which I'm very much enjoying it at the moment, learning as much as I can.
And how do you find the balance of studying and training as well?
So the uni and Surrey, they both work together to afford you the time to do your uni work. So whilst I think for the PCDA, when they were on DCU, they get 2 days, while DHEP get 1 day.
Right.
Once you get on MPT, you only get 1 day allocated to you, which is personal learning time. So with that, you're expected to do your uni work and stuff like that in that time. But if you ever feel like you're behind, you can always talk to your line manager, your sergeants, and they should be able to afford you time to do that as well. So you do have the support that you need for it. So.
Shall we talk about proudest moments so far then?
Well, I don't think it's quite difficult to pinpoint one.
Pinpoint one?
I don't think I can pinpoint one, if I'm honest, because so far I've been happy with every moment.
Yeah. What does a day look like then? How do we? Yeah, let's talk through a day in the life of PC Johnson.
I think the video covered it well, but usually you turn up to your shift, turn up early, get changed, then you have to go in for briefing. Normally briefing, they tell you what's expected, what's going on pretty much at the moment, and then after you finish with your briefing, which is with your team, it's not just your team. So I'm based in Guildford, but it would be your rota. So I'm 8 rota. So that's everyone from the borough. So I'll say borough division. So who's on A rota is in that briefing.
Yeah.
Once you go out from briefing, you book onto your radio, and then you're available to take calls. Essentially, sometimes you got workload as well. You need to work through. Some people may have to work through case files and other things like that. But potentially, primarily, your job is to respond. So if there's a 999 call, you need to go to that. That takes precedence over everything else.
Yeah, sure. Well, what we'll do is we'll also share the day in the life video in the chat or something. The team will be able to do that as well. Okay, shall we move on to some questions now? As we've been talking, thank you very much, everyone. You've been sharing your questions in here. Matt's a question for PC Johnson. Do you have any advice for someone who's young, who's applying for the force, and to whether they need to get more life experience prior to joining?
Strangely, we had this conversation prior to coming in here with the chief. I tried to apply when I was 18, with another force at the time, but I didn't feel I had life experience. But on my dedicated training unit, my colleague, he's only 18, and everyone's mature in their own way. So if you feel that you've got the maturity to do it and the experience within that, then by all means, it's a role for anyone, and you've got the support there that you need, regardless of your age. That's Surrey's an all-inclusive force, and you will get the support from day one. Yeah. But life experience does help at times, but that's something you can get within the job anyway as well. So don't be deterred by that.
But I think that you got to boil down what people mean by life experience, I think. And my advice would be confidence to deal with people and deal with anybody. So I didn't have a great deal of life experience. I came in, pretty much straight after university, but I'd been a glass collector in a bar, I'd worked on building sites, I'd done paper rounds, so I'd had sort of experiences that brought me into contact with lots of people and, deal with sort of some difficult scenarios. So I think if you like chatting to people, if you can sort of build a relationship, get to know people, regardless of who they are or what situation you find them in, then that's a great start in life experience, if you want to call it that, to do well in policing, I think.
That ability to build rapport.
Yeah, I often talk to new recruits about learning to talk to strangers on buses, which is a bit difficult in the pandemic with the face mask on when there's not many people on buses, but it is, if you're watching this and thinking about policing, it's something that you can try. If you're in a queue, if you're on public transport, you're on the train, try chatting to strangers. You'll get some strange reactions. Some people will not want to talk to you, but you will develop your conversation skills, and you definitely need that in policing.
Yeah. It's about that smile, it confuses people sort of approach.
Yeah.
Paul, hello on YouTube. Another question coming through. Could you please describe your day-to-day work, how busy you are, how you would say uniform policing in Surrey compares to other forces like the Met, for example?
Ooh, I can't really compare to the Met because I don't know what they do. But from my day-to-day basis, I really struggle with that one actually. Yeah. It's just like I said, primarily you take the calls. Some days are busier than others, but obviously you can appreciate that since the restrictions have been lifted, it's getting very busy now, and you feel like you're being pulled to job. But once you're committed to something, you pretty much have to deal with that, unless, like for example, if you have a grade 2, I'm not sure people will understand that, but the grade 1 would take precedence, so you'd have to manage work, pretty much adapt and work around dealing with both, essentially. So
grade 2 is a job that we're trying to get to within an hour, right. So not the sort of emergency response, but you want to get there quickly to see people. I mean, I suppose that on that question about comparison with working in somewhere like London, if you want to come into policing because you enjoy the sort of buzz and maybe you've watched some of the shows on TV that shows all of that response work. There's plenty of that to do in Surrey, but it's also a comparatively safe place. So Surrey's usually in the tables sort of 4th or 5th safest county in England and Wales, which does give just a little bit more breathing space. Not much. I know Victor's going to say they're really busy. They are really busy, but it does give you a little bit more breathing space to get to know your communities and feel like you are, making a difference to them, which is what we've been chatting about. Some urban areas, maybe you don't get a chance to sort of take that little bit of time out.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens, this is for you again. So it's about community policing.
Yeah. ...
It
Yeah.
says foot to foot. Can we bring it back? It's saying.
Yeah, well, we're doing our best to bring it back in Surrey. So, I mean, I'm a huge fan. Up until recently, I was the national lead for neighbourhood policing, and I think unless you've got that sort of relationship with communities, which we really sort of treasure in Surrey, then everything else in policing gets so much more difficult, because of course we need our communities to be witnesses, to give us intelligence, to intervene if they feel confident to do so, to keep their own neighbourhood safe, and you can only do that by giving them confidence. We definitely like to have more community officers. I think in the years when finance was really difficult in public service, including in policing, then we did see some big cuts to community. But each year we've invested a bit more. We've doubled the numbers of our neighbourhood officers. We've doubled the numbers of our officers that are working in with youth engagement, working with children and young people, which is really interesting stuff as well. So yeah, if your thing is community policing, then Surrey's a good place to come.
And we've got another one for you as well, which is about streetlights.
Okay.
With what goes on in the early hours of the morning, it's not safe. In fact, it's very intimidating and scary to go home after a night out. And I suppose this ties into the work that we're doing with regards to the violence against women and girls as well.
It does. There's lots of research about street lighting, about whether it prevents crime or not. Generally, the sort of headline message from that research is it has very little crime reduction effect, but I do understand the questioner's point about reassurance and feelings of safety, which is equally important. The street lighting across Surrey is run by the County Council under contracts, so we work very closely with them. One of the things that I've been discussing with colleagues in County Council is if there are areas where people feel unsafe, it might not be that there's a lot of crime there, but they feel unsafe, then do flag that to your local councillor or to your local officer, and we can have those discussions about whether there's certain times that the street lights need to come back on, for example. In the long term, I think it's going to get a lot easier, because of course one of the reasons that many of them were switched off was because of cost. But as everything's getting converted to LED, it's a lot cheaper to run, so hopefully things will get better.
Thank you. We've got a few more back at you, PC Johnson. So what are your hours and shift patterns looking like at the moment?
So you normally work 2 earlies, 2 lates, 2 nights. Earlies being 7 till 4, lates 3 till I believe 1, and nights 10 till 7. Normally on the first, if your first early falls on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, that's dedicated for training. So you need to be in at 1 for 2 hours to do training. But I think that covers the question.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Which do you find hardest out of all the shifts?
I think nights are quite difficult when you start off, because it's the it's not so much working through it, it's more the recovery period after, because it kind of unbalances everything.
Yeah.
And then more happens at night, so nights are good. But they're all good.
Yeah. You touched on coming in early to do training as well, which I suppose leads us quite nicely on to talking about paperwork.
Okay.
Everyone's favourite.
Yep.
How much paperwork is there compared to the time that you're on duty?
Paperwork is a very big part of the job.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say that you're not going to do much, because for every job you need to document everything, and it's just a big aspect of it. But when you start off, it's quite difficult in terms of you feel like you're slow at it, but eventually as you get more experience, you become faster at it. And it's not so much, you don't feel it as much as you would when you started off. You do get the support as well with your team as well. Everyone helps each other out. So, for example, if you still got a lot to do, someone will jump in and say, "What can I do to help you?" Which goes by. That's what Surrey are good at as well.
Yeah.
It feels like very much like a family.
It's our culture again. Yeah.
So don't feel like you'll struggle. There's people there who will help you as well and guide you through it as well. So
yeah. And I think for new recruits joining now as well, that's one of the things that they're definitely going to see change over the coming years, because the technology is getting so good now. We're able to automate more and more, and I think you can expect that in the coming years, and to be able to, I don't know if anybody watching does their, builds the little sort of apps on your iPhone where you can, put a little sequence of things together and make a tile for it to do something. That's the sort of thing that's coming on the mobile phones that we use, that you can build your own little processes to just shortcut the steps.
Just shortcut it all.
Yeah.
We've got another few questions here. Mr. Stevens, in comparison to other forces, I'd argue that you're one of the most transparent Chief Constables. Why is being transparent in leadership so important to you and to the force?
Oh, well, it's very, very kind of them to say that, but I'm not sure that that's the case. But I think all forces want to have that degree of transparency because we're a public service. We're spending nigh on £250 million of public money every year. And if you're doing that, then people need to know what you're spending the money on and what value they're getting from it. And when sort of British policing was set up, it was set up to be part of the community. I mean, there's this phrase in the principles, Pelian principles, which talks about the public are the police of the public. I genuinely believe that. We're just citizens in uniform, paid to give full-time attention to what everybody should be doing. And I think if you're going to do that well, you have to be transparent. It's not always easy, mind you, because policing does come in for its fair share of criticism. Whether it's in media or elsewhere, and I'm not saying that can hurt. Sometimes it bruises when colleagues like Victor are going out there day in day out to try and help and keep people safe, and then you get some of that. So there can be a tendency, I think, sometimes in policing because of that to become a bit defensive. But it's really important that we work hard not to be defensive and to try and continue that sort of transparency. So, I'm pleased that that's been noticed by the questioner.
Yeah, and I suppose our inclusive culture and who we are as a force, which we've been talking about, helps with that bruising as well. If you feel that, you've got colleagues who can then talk it all through with you.
Yeah.
We've got another question here from Facebook. Can you work as a police officer in your local town, or is this not allowed for some reason?
Usually I tend to move you away from your local town in case you come across people that you meet throughout work. You don't want to see them outside work as well.
Yeah.
So I think they tend to move you away from it. I don't know what policy is on it, but I know when recruitment do the posting, they take that into account so you don't come across that situation.
Yeah.
So I've heard of people who have worked in the local towns before, but it's not ideal. That's what they're trying to avoid primarily. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've got friends that still police in the town I grew up in, and it's possible. And I know colleagues across Surrey that police the area that they live in, but it does bring with it an additional set of things that you got to manage because you might end up sitting at your neighbour's kitchen table. Dealing with something difficult, and it's not easy. So.
No. Thank you both very much. We're going to start wrapping up everything now, which means on your screens there will shortly be the website address, which goes to our careers page. On that careers page, you'll be able to find out far more information about what we've talked about this evening, how to apply for any roles to become a police officer. We'll also share the link as well to our comment section, so on Facebook or YouTube, where you can add any other questions in there, which we'll be wrapping up tomorrow, putting together sort of an FAQ list of all of those questions as well. Do remember that the deadline for applicants for becoming a police officer for this intake is Sunday the 8th of August at 23:59. So it goes without saying, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and also for our guests that joined earlier. Thank you all also to everyone who's dialed in this evening or tuned in this evening. We hope you found the discussions informative and helpful, and it's given you sort of a little bit of an insight into what it's like to be an officer or indeed just a colleague at Surrey Police. Thank you also to everyone who sent in a question. Hopefully we got round to all of them. Again, we'll go through everything and make sure they've all got answers. And yes, add those in and we can make sure that they're all covered off. Which means before we head off, we're going to watch a film about our dog of the week. So thank you all so much for watching this evening, and enjoy Dog of the Week, and see you next time. Thank you.
I'm Sue Sawyer, and I joined in September being put on the puppy programme. I was then given Louis, who has been an absolute star to have in the house. He's been absolutely perfect. It obviously gives him the confidence to be out in the big wide world. So when they come into their handlers, they've accepted a lot of situations already. He is absolutely perfect. He was very lovable, very funny. He absolutely loved his ball, very good eye contact. But yeah, he loved his ball, so would do anything for his ball. He was absolutely brilliant, lovely dog.
Speak.
You feel really, really proud that you've been part of the programme. To see for them as a puppy, and all that you're doing is the socialisation side. You obviously come in training once a month as well, so you have to carry on doing that. But then when you come here, you're absolutely seeing a completely different dog. Obviously working and showing that they're out there protecting us all. It's absolutely brilliant. You feel so proud. It's like your children going off to university.
So hi, my name is PC Luke Wendybank. I'm a police dog handler with the Surrey and Sussex Joint Police Dog Unit. Newly qualified handler, having completed my course and licensing on Monday of this week. Today we're here at Surrey Police headquarters where we've just had our Families Day. Myself and another handler have just participated in a little demonstration for the puppy walkers and our families to demonstrate what we've learned over the last 13 weeks. So we've done our 13-week course together, myself and Police Dog Louis. The course incorporates a lot of different aspects of police dog handling, including tracking, where we find criminals, we find missing people, we find vulnerable people. We focus on building searches, which we can utilise to find suspects that may be inside a building. We do a bit of bite work, which obviously we use to apprehend criminals should the need arise. I've actually had Louis since January. So I was given Louis when he was about 10 months old, I think it was, and I was still working on the neighbourhood patrol team over in East Surrey. So I've had him now for a good amount of months. And when I got him, he was smaller. He was a very placid dog, and with time, you know, he's grown up and he's become a different dog from what I first had him, really. As you can hear, he's just kicked his water bowl over, which he never used to do, but he does every day now. Obviously, Louis is finishing at 15 months, so he's still got a lot of maturing to do, but it's important to remember that the course is just a basic course. It doesn't mean that you're going to be all guns blazing when you go out. There's still lots of work to do. So Louis absolutely loves these yellow balls, which I keep in my pocket at all times. He's had them since a puppy, I believe, and this is without doubt his favourite toy. If I produce that, hopefully, within reason, he should do anything I want him to do. So that's always kept in my pocket just in case I need it in a hurry. Yes, good We've also done a bit of obedience, which helps us to get the control over the dogs. And that all culminates in a licensing day, which happened on Monday this week, where an assessor comes from a different force and they assess the different aspects that we've learned across the last 13 weeks. So thankfully, myself and my colleague and also Police Dog Louis were successful. So we're looking forward to our first operational shift. I'll be working in North Surrey, and I've been paired with a really experienced dog handler for the first sort of 2 or 3 sets, which will be excellent because they'll be able to give me some great guidance, some tips, and they'll be able to really help me and Louis to develop ourselves so we're operational and a benefit to the good people of Surrey and Sussex. So our first shift, who knows what it will bring, I have no idea, but hopefully we'll get some good jobs in early, and it'll allow me and Louis to develop ourselves and you know, really bring ourselves along. So Louis and I will be continue training throughout our career, and I know we've got lots of stuff to focus on and develop, both him and I. So yeah, he's a great dog. He's very steady, and hopefully with a bit of time, you know, he'll push himself further and he'll become a really great dog. Louis, in the van, up. Good boy, good boy, good boy.